Anna and Margaret were quite close since Margaret was her mother. When Margaret was a year ago diagnosed with cancer and died, Anna was alone with her grief, and now the house seems empty without her mother. She missed the last talks and the little things her mother been doing that used to reassure her. It was a heavy kind of loneliness for someone as young as Anna. She focused on her work and spent a lot of time at the office. Once in one evening, which was the worst day for her, Anna sat in a chair near the table in the apartment, late into the night, when the clock nearly chimed. She mindlessly checked her phone for the notifications, but when the phone rang, the name on the screen made her stop breathing. It was Margaret. Anna's eyes widened and she nearly gasped. Her voice was her mother. At first she did not reply, then she did. I heard my mother's voice on the phone. "Anna, I miss you." It was soft, warm, and comforting, something which was reassuring to the shakes of my head. But things changed immediately when Anna saw its image. It was distorted. It resembled her mother's voice, but faint and full of interference, as if filtered through the airwaves of some far-off radio station. "Mom?" Anna asked, and she could hardly control her quiver. "Is this really you?" "Well," was the answer, in a whisper. "I'm still here." The feelings elated through her, and she could not contain them well enough to even let a sigh slip out, and she still could not come to terms with how it was possible. Her mother had been dead for a year. Was this some kind of prank? A glitch in the phone system? She was even ready to quiz her on things that she would be aware nobody knows her as much as her mom. But the call ended suddenly. The next moment the line was disconnected, leaving Anna spellbound. Shocked and agitated, Anna attempted to call back the number, and all that she could get was the voicemail. Her blood started to pound in her ears, and she knew that it was not possible. It was just her mind tricking her. But that in no way made clear how the call weekend had come through her mother's number. More hours went by before her telephone started ringing again. On the third attempt, it was much more difficult to understand what the voice at the other end was saying. It was her mother's voice, raspy and strained, her mother's voice raised in panic. "Anna, listen, he's coming for you." Then the line went dead, and before my lady could say something on the other side of the line, she disappeared, nervous. That is why Anna decided to try calling the number previously belonging to her mom again, and heard the voice on the answering machine. She called her phone service provider, but was told that the call really came from the said number, which in no way was distorted or wrong. There was no explanation, and none of it could be deciphered. That which followed the few days were very peculiar. Furniture that was placed in her apartment had been seen to shift on its own. There was a silence of familiar tune, which she thought was still a part of her childhood nursery rhyme, echoed from a small music box her mother had placed on the living room. Anna was longing to know the internal state of Donald with increasing levels of confusion and fear. Then, one evening after the others had gone to sleep, there came a phone call again. Though she wanted to ignore it, Anna was eager to grab it, her hands shaking as she finally did so. This time I heard my mother, but it was her barely, indistinct, and whispering voice I could barely understand. "Anna, listen carefully. Do not go outside tonight. Do not trust anyone." The voice was tense and panicked, but before Anna could register the words, the call was disconnected again. Anna's sense of unease grew. Before going to bed, she inspected all the lock-on doors and windows, which gave the impression to her as if someone has attempted to steal on her home. The message was as clear as it could be, but she did not know who or what she needed to shield herself from. Late that night, as she was seated in her living room doing her usual work, she heard a knock. She took a moment to think and ponder. The last call had cautioned her not to trust a soul. She took a closer look at the peephole. There was no one. But when she did open it one day, there was only one red rose on the doormat. She knew it at once what it was. Her mother used to give her roses, particularly birthday roses, and she told her that roses were indication of roses from heaven. All the hairs on Anna's body stood on end. Something was terribly wrong, and day after day the phone rang and rang and rang some more. The voice on the other end was panting more whenever it spoke to her and telling her to lock herself in and that someone is coming to get her. "Anna, This is when Anna started to feel imprisoned, involving all her skepticism about what was going on to her. The last call was made late at night, and the voices were disguised beyond identification. "He's here, he's coming for you." Having panicked, Anna called the police since she was scared for her life. Indeed, there were other times that she thought she locked all doors and windows tight. Suddenly, she heard footsteps in the hallway. They were very selective, slow, and deliberate, as if there was someone trailing her. She rushed through her apartment, opening every single door and even looking inside, but there was nobody around. Next, she looked around a corner, and what did she find? A tall silhouette of a man holding a door handle of her bedroom. The figure in question was slender and of average height. It was impossible to discern the face of the being. The voice that slowly rose to greet her at the other end of the line was not her mother. Rather, it was a warning that, all too graphically, Anna's heart leaped to grasp. Her mother's spirit had been shielding her from this figure, from a danger she had not seen. The figure spoke, its voice cold and deep. "Hello, Anna," I said, and continued, "I've been waiting for you, Anna." Frightened to death, Anna fled, and the figure pursued her. She could hear its footsteps behind her as she fumbled her way through her apartment. Only when Get was about to grab the door handle and run away, the figure got closer towards her. But then, as fast as this apparition emerged, it vanished just as easily as anyone would imagine a mirage to dissolve in thin air. Anna came down the hallway and was standing there trembling and out of breath. In its turn, the silence which descended upon the vicinity was as emptier and colder as the devastation's tangible aftermath, an atmosphere as oppressive as the smoke and ashes which enveloped the site. Her phone rang once again. She answered it and listened to a voice that, although she barely recognized, was instantly familiar. Her mother's voice, gentle, soothing. "You're safe now, Anna. It's over." The call finally ended, and the silence that followed was somehow creepy. That was the last time she got a call from her mother. Acceptance of the terrible events then began in subsequent months. However, what followed? The figure never came back. There were no more phone calls from the deceased. Still, there is the underlying sense that the dead are not really dead. They can, and indeed, they do come back sometimes in one way or another, as everyone has a fear of being killed. Still, there is the underlying sense that the dead are not really dead. They can, and indeed, they do come back sometimes in one way or another, as everyone has a fear of being killed.